on 19 Keys, and this is high level conversation.
A lot of
Especially
things
with
are
mental health.
avoidable.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to, number one, men are not supposed to stress, right? Decreases your testosterone, right? So it's not good for a man to stress. A man got to have peace. He got to have calmness in his life. You feel me? But nah, you know, I think you fine, man. You good.
We're going to see. We're going to see what's going to happen, bro.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
So I got another question for you.
Go for it.
Do you think that Saudi Arabia will be like the real next go-to place? Because when we look at technology, you know, America is going to have a hard time building any infrastructure over here because it already has infrastructure. So it can't use the latest and greatest because they got to rip out what's already here. So when you look at Africa, Africa has prime position to use, not only to build new cities of tomorrow, but to use the best technology. So it'd be futuristic cities. Saudi Arabia is built in Dubai and Qatar and all these places building in the desert. So they can build futuristic cities instantly. Where do you think the future, right? I guess, yeah, the future cities where everybody is going towards will be?
So, once again, if the world were really focused in on development and betterment, it would definitely be Africa because the continent of our origin is obviously the most nutrient rich and biodiverse place on the planet, right? The fight over Africa and its resources is emblematic of global dysfunction, of the usury and the exploitation that has defined modern mankind. And the reason why I say that is because the condition, and by the way, this is not me saying that Africa is in bad condition. It's not. What I'm saying is that the true power of the continent has yet to be revealed. Because if you've ever visited Africa, you go to Africa, Africans over there have amazing, wonderful societies that they've built. And it's fine, it's thriving, it's getting better every single day. But what I'm talking about is the power.
He's so politically correct.
I'm trying to say I'm not trying to be politically correct. What I'm saying is there's misconceptions that is motherfuckers running around there in grass skirts and huts. It's not.
Well, I think that perception is being corrected by all of the visits and the compiling of media that people show from their visits.
But what I am saying is the continent of Africa and how much it has to offer the world and what it has given to the world historically has the story's been undertold and has been marginalized.
100%.
Right? And so there's even more there to be had. So it should be, but it probably won't be. Okay? Not in the near future. Saudi Arabia is different. And different places in the Middle East are different in terms of like even places like Dubai. In a hyper-capitalistic world where anything can be bought, the person with the most money rules. The Saudis can buy whatever they want.
That's a fact.
Straight up. Like there's too much money they can buy the morality of individual people. They can buy they can buy whole entities that people that wouldn't say that we wouldn't work with them because because Jamal Khashoggi got killed or because of how people's rights over there, women's rights, whatever. No, whatever. They paid Cristiano Ronaldo like $1 billion to play soccer. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
they could buy the damn American League and take all the players.
They could buy whatever they want. And so the reality is, like, it's not about like it's about what the price is more than anything, right? It's about what the price is. So, to me, the entire future in a hyper-capitalistic world where only money matters, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what's best for people. It doesn't matter what's best for society. It doesn't matter. Then the places like that are nutrient rich, that are resource rich, and have autocratic governments you're going to probably see them rise in power. That's why China's such a problem. China's such a problem because the fact that there's an autocracy there in China means that they can get stuff done. Right? It ain't bureaucracy and red tape. Right. I'm not saying that like I want an autocracy. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that like the people there don't have very much power, but when they decide at the top that they want to compete in a specific way and they want to invest and have resources in a specific way, they just go do it.
That's what they did. You go back a few decades, China was not what it is today. Nowhere near. And people would have thought China would have stayed that way. But China had made a decision, I believe they said part of it was the game Go. When the AI had beat the best Go player in the world, that China had looked at that and it was a signal for them that the world had changed essentially. And they had decided from there on that they were going to be the leaders in AI, right? And they had made a statement to the world saying that in 20 years, probably or 30 years, that we're going to be ahead of America in AI and technology. Now, when you're dealing with AI, you're talking about who has the most data, right? So when you're talking about people that can, a government that's set up in a way where it can extract data completely legally, right, in every aspect of surveillance and human reality, then they can automatically start building a society out much quicker. Where America has to go through red tape. America has to go through these laws. We have to go through lobbyism. And America, it does not represent where we could be, right? America represents corporate interests and where we're lobbied.
Sure.
Right? And this is why America is not able to move as fast as anybody else.
To keep pace.
Because if it's not within, like, even inventions in America, how come all of a sudden all these companies start releasing all this technology? That means that they've been holding on to it and they slow leaking it so that they can make money. But when one company does it, or maybe it's China that does it, and now they want to compete, all of a sudden you see innovation rise. But you've done it at a point where it's almost too late now because you can't compete with what's out there. So America is stifled by not capitalism, but by monopolies.
A couple of different things about income inequality is one.
Monopolyism, if that's a word.
So the centralization of power and people's inability to the moment, I keep coming back to this, the moment that the life of the average American is not prioritized, everybody suffers, because just in prioritizing the life of the average American, then that means inherently you have to do a couple of things. You have to create. We're not talking about people that want to go out and change the world. We talk about people that want to work from Monday to Friday and then go watch the Saints play on Sunday. Yeah. Right? And so, like, those people, in order for them to be viable, there have to be industries where they work, where they work, right? So right there, industries where they work. Then there have to be grocery stores and stuff to feed them. Then there have to be education for the generation after them to learn based upon the fruit of their stuff. Then you probably have to have a strong union at where they work to protect the workers. Just by prioritizing the average American right there, right? I'm talking about the C student, so that they can work, live, and have a good time. So much of stuff around grows. So many other businesses and things have to be healthy for that person to be healthy. The moment that middle class dissipates and you no longer care about them, then what has to be cared about is the top 0.1 of 1% that have all the centralized wealth in the country. And once that happens, well, you're not going to care about those people. So those jobs are going to move to other countries, right? It's going to be all about profit, shareholders, things like that, which, by the way, I personally believe, like, in the Keynesian method, meaning the power of the worker. And so the economics of the country would actually be better. Innovation would actually be better. There would be less even environmental waste if, in fact, the average life of the American was prioritized. There's another reason why that can't happen in the country as well. For a long time, the strength of America was seen in its diversity, right? What we're seeing now is places with relatively homogenous demographics start to catch up to America because some of the cultural issues and cultural fights that exist in those places that exist here don't exist over there. So if we talk about places like the Netherlands, right? Everybody talks about like how pristine their societies are. If you've ever been there, you go there, it's clean. Everybody got free healthcare. It's cool. The whole thing. Those places are so homogenous that they don't mind paying a 60% tax rate. Do you know why? Because when they pay a 60% tax rate or sometimes a 65% tax rate, they know that that money is going to them because it's going to somebody that looks just like them.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we have, right, that goes on here is any initiative that would happen, there are people asking, well, I don't want niggas to benefit from that. Like, why would I want them to get something? Like, so we're going to invest in the schools. Okay, we're going to invest in the schools in South Baton Rouge where I'm from. I sit down and tell you right now, if you invest into the schools in South Baton Rouge, let me tell you 3 things that are going to happen, right? Those kids are going to be better educated. They're going to go to better colleges. They're going to start better businesses. And I'm not just talking about the schools. I'm talking about the trade schools that could be around those places. You're going to get more barbers, more hairdressers, more mechanics, more people that can go out there and actually make a living. And you know what? That's going to keep some of those people out of your living room.
100%.
I don't care. I don't care that would happen. The reason why I don't care is because I don't want them to have anything. So those cultural, as well, capitalism, right? As well as some of these cultural situations that are going on, it's stunting the growth of the country. Not stunting the growth, it's grinding to a halt. And there's had to be somebody. And when I say someone, last thing I'll say, so I'm not filibustering. There's got to be somebody that talks to everybody. And I mean this. When I say somebody that talks to everybody, I mean a politician. I don't care if it's Larry Jenkins Jr. from South Chicago or if it's whomever somebody that says, I care about y'all. And when I say y'all, I mean everyone. If I was running for president right now, I would campaign with my base, but I would also be heavy in the places that Trump runs. And I would say to them, you know what? When I get up here and when I win, like it or not, the country's going to be better for y'all too.
Yeah. I think that's because I think you said it a bunch of times in this, that they're the one of the prime motivators and drivers of the decision makers is that they really don't want Black people to have anything, right? And I have to think about how effectively true that is. Then I have to think about, I had a conversation with my brother Vince, and he's a brother that did like 20 years, got out, created a multi-million-dollar company, only hires felons. But he said something. He said that creativity with lack of opportunity equals criminality. And then I had a conversation with my brother Keenan, and we start talking about what is the middle class? Middle class is basically being able to afford a household of 4, right? And he introduced me to this stat that since 1990, there hasn't been any new jobs for the middle class, right? I think that
they've lost jobs though.
Right. Yeah, no new job.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's a crab in a barrel mentality. So it's the infrastructure of America that has Americans fighting. I think it's less about the ideology of these particular groups and more about the strength of America and what they've given to the people. The America hasn't given more opportunities, hasn't created more jobs, right? It hasn't strengthened the mom and pop shops. It hasn't strengthened environments and neighborhoods where people get the money on business because they got it, right? When we look at those median averages, those are decreasing across the board, right? For Blacks and whites. And they always put us and say that these are our counterparts, whites and Blacks, the median household. But they never mention East Indian or Asian, and they're at the top. Yet we see this new range of East Indians or Indians, period. Kamala, Vivek, Nikki Haley. All of a sudden, these are the new candidates that's pushed as the new minority, right? And I think Black people are thrown into this distractive fight with poor white people, poor Black people, middle-class white people, middle-class Black people, while everybody else is running laps around us, building, right? And I do think that we have a culture problem in the fact that our culture does not incentivize progress or growth. So, which is an eternal thing. That's not nothing nobody else has to do to me, right? That's something that we have to fix ourselves because of our culture is education. Doesn't matter how much you hate it. There's nothing you can stop about my intelligence increasing, right? We see Robert Smith, I believe he gave like $100 million to HBCUs, right? Which is a great thing. But when we need more of those type of initiatives that's about those that come from our communities, that come from our collective, and empowering and educating us, right? And when I say educating, funding initiatives that educate, not going into research, just going into this nonprofit. I'm talking about people who's already doing it, and you're funding that so that it becomes bigger. We're not doing that. So we can't really look outside of what we're not doing to look at what somebody else don't want for us or trying to do against us. And I believe that that's the difference that we have that a lot of other communities don't have. They first look internally of what's all the problems, right? What can we fix? And what's the issue internally that we can fix? Then externally, what can we do about those people that's against us now that we strengthen? When you got a team, you're not focused on how good that other team is. You got to get your team together first. If we got bad defense, bad offense, and we don't have camaraderie against each other, it doesn't matter how good they are. It's really about how good we are, right? And my whole thing is we don't need everybody. We don't need 45 million black people to be on it. We need the leaders. We need 10,000 black families to be strong, educated, that can lead the rest of the nation, right? When we look at other people, we say it's a small percentage of them that's at the top. So, and they have the power that trickles down to the rest that creates the narrative that then represents reality. So why aren't we doing the same things? So for me, I think that we have to stop existing in these ideas that somebody else even has control over us. And it's not to say that they don't exist. It's just that we need to focus on the factors of things that we can control, and we ignore our greatest allies, the people who's working for our benefit, right? So we have to use our media, which I think is our wealth. That's our wealth transfer, is this technology age, to where we can do whatever we want with it.
What up?
Right? Nobody gets to control your media besides if you take advertisement dollars, you can't do certain things. But who's to say that we can't prop up certain voices so that we can control certain narratives? Why isn't, when I look at the NAACP, or I look at, I ain't named too many black organizations I can name anymore, right? But when you see that the financial literacy movement is pushing and black people are getting stocks and they're investing, why isn't that propped up more? Right? Why isn't that a political speaking point? Why isn't that something that we shining and magnifying the light on? And everybody who has a platform, every single body should be happy about this. Like, yo, they really showing up 20,000 people strong over here.
Right.
That's something amongst us that's an issue. That's not cause CNBC did it. Fox did it.
Right.
So that's us that not taking a movement that should be the biggest one so that we can start to change the narrative. Cause they say, obviously young black men like when they see black men that's educated and that's fly and they see a new archetype and black women that's creating businesses. Why are we making that the narrative?
Right.
That's a collective issue internally on how we're not using our resources and power.
So let me tell you where we have synergy right now. I'm talking about the diagnosis. You're talking about the prescription. And that's why the conversation is important. Tell you what I mean. So post World War II, the major manufacturing hubs are destroyed. Japan is destroyed. Germany is destroyed, right? Russia's in shambles, a lot of war-torn places, right? 3% of the world's population died in World War II. So when people talk about like how bad Hitler is or why you shouldn't play, like Hitler popped off a war that probably got somebody in your family killed. 3% of the world's population died in World War II. So what happens after World War II is, for a time there, the United States is unfettered and unchallenged in its ability to manufacture, right? For a little while there, it is not only do we come back with the economic boost that happened from the war, right? Because of the war effort, but for a little while after that, like we were the only place that was really popping and had the infrastructure to do stuff, right? So you get from about 45 to maybe actually 60, maybe not even that long, 10 or 15 years of stuff happening. Detroit booms. All of this stuff starts to happening. And because that stuff is happening, some of the other cultural issues in those cities don't really matter, right? So by the time you get to the 60s, that has really slowed and those places have come back. And as soon as those places come back and the United States has to compete globally with some of those places, the cultural issues in places like Detroit, in places like all throughout New Jersey, they bubble back up to the surface because now the money and the ability of people to provide for their family are gone. And what people start to see is, you know what? they really don't like each other. And if it's about somebody having less, we'll have less, right? And so then what happens is after that, you see the urban decay in the cities, you see all of that stuff, the Rust Belt develops. Now it starts to become about not who's going to be rich, but who's going to survive, okay? And so after that, we get to, like, you have a situation like that, right? Then you get to a situation like with the HBCUs. What you just said about the HBCUs. He gave $100 million to the HBCUs. He shouldn't have had to do that. Most of those HBCUs are land grant universities. And being at their land grant universities, there is funding that is supposed to be historically earmarked for them. And they have been purposefully and intentionally underfunded and defrauded, but not on accident, on purpose. So what I'm saying is, anytime the money gets pulled away, be it because America's manufacturing kind of the competition gets ratcheted up, or because something's being defunded for Black people, the answer starts to become Black people have less. Black people have less. Whenever you get into a situation about how we're supposed to do, it's always give them a little bit less. And last thing I'll say about this, before I get to where I agree with you at, is that we earned this. Like, this isn't, I'm not asking nobody for a handout. Like, I'm not looking at America as having a moral duty, like, to empower Black communities. It's a financial imperative. It's money that's been paid and not owed. It's stuff that's been pulled out of communities on purpose. It's intentional redlining, intentional poverty that's been given to these people, intentionally drugs that have been plowed, intentional over-policing. It's all very intentional. Now, and so I'll bring that up just to say that those things out there exist. Now, to what you said, your answer is the only way to beat it. Like, we could talk about the first part of what I'm talking about. We have to talk about it in order to understand. Like, for example, if you went into the doctor and you were sick and you had cancer, nobody gonna be stricken with that. But if you went to the doctor and you were sick and you had cancer, the worst thing the doctor could do was tell you that you were okay. Because if the doctor, he or she, tells you that you're okay, then you're gonna live life like there's nothing that you have to overcome. You're gonna go out and you're gonna say, now there are two different people. One people say, oh, wow, I got cancer, I'm gonna die now. Let me go do a bunch of coke, a bunch of and all of that. And then other people, like, they get after it. They go, okay, this is what I gotta do. This is how I gotta eat. This is the treatment I gotta do. I'm going to beat this. Now, I'm not saying being Black is a cancer. I'm not saying that at all. But I don't want people to take that way. I'm speaking life and prosperity into my people. But what I am saying is the reason why the diagnosis is important is because it makes the imperative of what you're saying to do more necessary. The reason why we have to do it is because of that. I'm not asking you to do things and have solidarity with your brothers and sisters for cosmetic reasons. I'm telling you it's the only way. Like, I'm telling you right now, I'm not asking you to do it because it looks better or it feels better. I'm telling you that's the only way. And the other ethnic groups that you brought up, they do have an advantage of having immigrated here, right? And with immigrating to a place, there's a different economic status that you come over to that place.
And they do come under as white.
Right. And you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, what you're saying is so true. And the reason why it's so true is because of the other part. The question is, and this is the question that I feel like you're asking, and the question that we ask, how much energy do we spend on which part of it? How much energy do we spend on educating people on what went wrong? And how much energy do we spend on educating and empowering people to do what's right?
Well, I think that of course, there has to be a majority of our energy has to always go into correcting the problem.
Word up. I agree.
Right? Because you can correct the problem without even knowing it. You can just have people working on the solution.
Right.
Right? But the way we get diagnosed matters. And the root of the diagnosing matters. You go to one doctor and they say, yo, you got cancer, right? This is what we need to do. We need to put you on chemo, right? It's going to be 3 to 6 months. You're going to lose your hair. You're going to get sick. They're going to tell you all of these different things. And it can be delivered in a very depressing way, number one.
Sure.
Right? To where, you know, it can make you almost give up. And sometimes they will even tell you, you know, it's stage 3 or whatever, and there's nothing we can do about it. This is how much longer you got to live. Then you may go to somebody else who's a healer, right? They don't consider themselves a doctor because they're not a part of this system where they utilize this lexicon and this is how you deliver this news. Somebody say, all right, here's the issue that you got going on, right? Now, they might even ask you about your lifestyle, right? What are you eating, right? And here are the adjustments that you can make. This is beatable. We've seen this before. These are everything that you need to do in order to beat this thing. This is not a death sentence. It's an adjustment of lifestyle to correct the previous lifestyle you were living and the accumulation of where it led, right? So one of them is almost looking at this as a cultural issue, right? Because this is the way you live, right? And doctors don't adjust your lifestyle. They just want to give you chemo, which is damn near killing you, and it kills more people, right, than actual cancer. So that's why I say there's 2 different narratives that go on when we give the diagnosis and who gives it and the narrative around it, because what we really need is an adjustment of culture and adjustment of lifestyle, which becomes preventative medicine.
Sure.
So that you're not constantly coming back and we got to rally and we got to have campaigns around cancer, but we never ever talk about the companies. We never talk about the products, the lifestyle, all of these things that
affirming what we want. Like,
right.
I'm 19 Keys, and this is High Level Conversation.